Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. Okay, so I am here today to talk all about the mythology of Aries. So we're actually going to be exploring Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Greek mythology tied to this sign. That way you can gain a deeper understanding of this fiery sign. Stay tuned because we're going to get into it. But before we do dive into today's video, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button and click the bell. And if you are interested in any of my services, then you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. You can book a reading with me. Also, you can find my practical astrology ebooks, guide, merch, cheat sheets, all that good stuff over at my website. I will link everything as well down below. And if you do want some extra content early, you can head on over to my Patreon. You can support Hannah's Elsewhere over there. Thank you so much to my patrons. I hope that you find this video to be helpful. Let's do this. Okay, so I just want to give a shout out to the author of this book, Astrology for Lovers, Liz Greene. I highly recommend this read. Due to Liz Greene's knowledge, I have been able to create this very series. Let's start off by turning our attention to ancient Babylon. The constellation of Aries was known by the name, I will insert the name right here, meaning Aries or Aries. And in the Babylonian star catalogues, Aries was listed as, I will insert the words here, which means the agrarian worker or the hired man. So let's think for a moment about agrarian and what that means. This relates to the cultivation of land. This relates to the ownership and the usage of land, the use of land, especially farm land. So looking at agriculture, and when we think about the word hired, well, to hire is to employ someone to do a job for a certain duration of time. Now, in the description of the Babylonian Zodiac, which you can find on the clay tablets, known as mul.aplin, the constellation of Aries was the final stop on the ecliptic. And the Pleiades was marked as the vernal equinox, also known as the spring equinox. Now, do keep in mind here, this is important because Aries today marks the beginning of the vernal equinox. It is the first sign of the zodiac, the sign of spring, the sign that starts the ball rolling, if you will. Aries plays a vital role in that it represents new life, creation, the beginning of new cycles, the end of winter and the cold. To quite literally have a spring in your step, energy, confidence, activity. But you see, the Pleiades cluster is located in the northwestern quadrant of the Taurus constellation. This cluster of stars marks the bull's shoulder. This is significant and interesting because it is typically Taurus that is associated with agriculture and farming, and it is Aries that represents, like I said, the vernal equinox, not Taurus. However, there was a shift as Aries was identified with the ram, and it is said that Aries later became associated with Dummesud the shepherd. Now, Dummesud the shepherd is an ancient Mesopotamian deity associated with agriculture and shepherds. Dummesud was the consort of the goddess Inanna, later known as Ishtar. Inanna was the goddess of love, war, and fertility. She also had associations with beauty, sex, divine law, and political power. And she was often named the Queen of Heaven, and her prominent symbols included the lion and the 8-pointed star. Now, in Sumerian mythology, Domucid's sister was the goddess of agriculture, fertility, and dream interpretation. All right, so looking at this myth tied to Domucid the shepherd, goddess Ainana descended into the underworld and perceived that Domucid failed to mourn her death. His mourning was not quite up to her standards, let's just say. So, when she returned from the underworld, Ainana allowed the Gala demons to basically drag Domucid down into the underworld as her replacement. But Ainana regretted her decision, and so she decreed that Domucid should spend half of the year in the underworld and the other half with her, whilst his sister stayed in the underworld in his place. And it was this process that resulted in the cycles of the seasons, the changing of the seasons. And in the Sumerian poem, Domucid and another farmer, Enkidu, I'll put all the words, of course, to the names, competed against each other for Ainana's hand in marriage. Now, this story right here, it sounds familiar, doesn't it? Perhaps you have heard the Greek and the Roman mythology tied to Virgo. So this story of Demeter and her daughter Persephone. Of course, Hades/Pluto kidnapped Persephone and dragged her down into the underworld. We'll talk more about this myth in the Virgo video, of course, but the story of Domucid and Ainana is very similar in my opinion, and it is symbolic. It's symbolic because this story speaks of the changing of the seasons, right? The return of spring and the ending of winter. This is significant because it is Aries that marks the beginning of spring in the Northern Hemisphere. It is strongly tied to death and rebirth. And do remember that Mars, so the ruler of Aries, also rules Scorpio, the sign of death and rebirth and transformation. Also consider the modern day ruler of Scorpio, which is Pluto, right? And like I was saying there, within that myth tied to Virgo, Hades was a part of it. Pluto was a part of it. Now, Domucid, who was the god of shepherds, was also an agricultural deity associated with the growth of plants. He was associated with springtime when the land flourished. There was more life. But during the summer months, the land dried up. And so the ancients thought that he had died. The ancients mourned his death during the middle of the summer. The important thing here is that shepherds are sheep herders. And sheep herders, they tend to flocks of sheep. They herd them, they feed them, they guard them. And sheep are very, very valuable when it comes to agriculture. And on sheep farms, rams are usually the most valuable animals. Keep in mind that the symbol of Aries today is the ram. All right, so let's move on to the Egyptian mythology of Aries. In ancient Egypt, Aries was associated with the god Amun-Ra. God Amun-Ra was depicted as a man with a ram's head and is said to have represented fertility and creativity. Now, by this stage, Aries marked the vernal equinox, and to the Egyptians, Aries was known as the indicator of the reborn sun. There is that word again, rebirth. He was seen as a solar god, a creator god, a fertility god. Amun originally, and fused with sun god Ra, this is how we really get the name Amun-Ra. And Ra represented the sun rising as the rebirth of the sun. Now we are noticing here that fertility and creation are strongly linked to Aries, which makes sense because Aries is associated with creation today. Again, thinking about new life, Aries represents a bud bursting into life, okay? The power it must take to do that, the strength. But also consider childbirth, the literal birth of a child. This is what Aries signifies. To also think about the beginning stages of life, this is what Aries symbolizes. Aries shows us our earliest stages of development: infancy, childhood, childlikeness, strong emotions, self-discovery. But get this, when Ra was in the underworld, he merged with Osiris, the god of the dead. So again, we are noticing a similar myth to the Sumerian myth, and how Aries had these strong associations with new life. But this is about looking at the very cycles of life and death. Lastly, let's explore the Greek mythology of Aries. Greek mythology is my personal favorite. Okay, so this one is very different to the other two myths. In fact, we're going to be mentioning a couple of myths here. See, Aries is associated with the golden ram. Hermes ordered the golden ram to rescue Phrixus and Helle. Now, Phrixus and Helle were the son and daughter of King Athamas and his first wife, Nephele. But the king's second wife was jealous, and so she set out to have his children Killed. So what she did is she induced a famine. And then she made up this false story about how the Oracle of Delphi said Phrixus must be sacrificed in the if the famine was to end. So if the famine was to end, Phrixus was to be sacrificed. But just as Athamas was about to sacrifice his own son, Aries arrived. Aries to the rescue. Aries was sent by Nephele. However, unfortunately, Helle fell off Aries' back and basically drowned. Okay, so she fell off Aries' back in flight and drowned. So after the ram arrived, the ram was sacrificed to Zeus and the fleece was given to, I will insert the name here. And Phrixus was rewarded with an engagement to his daughter. And the fleece was hung up in a temple, in a sacred place. Now, there is another myth, a later myth, about Jason and the Argonauts. Perhaps you have heard of this one, Jason and the Argonauts, but this involves the golden fleece again. See, after Phrixus died, his cousin, Peleus seized the throne. Jason was the true successor to the throne, but Peleus refused to give up the throne to Jason unless he brought home the golden fleece from Colchis. And so Jason and the Argonauts led a voyage to retrieve the golden fleece. Now, at first, Jason asked for the fleece, okay? He asked nicely for that fleece, but King At refused to give the fleece to him. But you see, the king's daughter, Medea, fell wildly in love with Jason. She was so in love with him that she was willing to sacrifice her own brother to help him steal the fleece. After retrieving the fleece successfully, they returned, okay? They returned. Jason and Medea even covered their wedding bed with the fleece, and eventually it was hung up. Okay, it was hung up on the temple of Zeus in Greece. But this is not where the story ends. This is actually when issues arise because Jason let the whole damn thing get to his head. As soon as Jason finds a younger princess, he discards of Medea. But she was having none of it. None of it. And so what? What did Medea do? She slaughtered Jason's 2 children and poisoned his new bride. And this right here is where we notice the qualities Aries can often lack. Qualities of patience, gentleness, sympathy, compassion, tenderness, and compromise. Seeing others, considering others. Consider where Aries sits in the zodiac. Opposite Libra, the sign of compromise and fairness. Between the signs Pisces and Taurus. Pisces is the hidden self of Aries. Pisces encourages Aries to integrate qualities of empathy and emotional intelligence. And then Taurus correlates with the qualities Aries is here to learn. The qualities Aries grows into. Qualities of patience, commitment, steadiness. Now, the story of Jason represents the potential dangers that can come with this headstrong and somewhat violent energy at times. But you see, Aries can also be noble. Aries can mature over time, provided Aries learns from its mistakes. There is a shift from this ruthless competition and winning and mistreating others to being someone with honorable characteristics due to honesty, courage, considering other people. Within the story of Jason, we learn about the characteristics of Aries that are self-centered, power-driven, achievement-orientated, and must be first, must win. This story also highlights the asexual drive represented by Aries. Remember, think about those associations with fertility as well. But Aries can also be heroic and brave and honorable, forms allies, but also enemies, stands up for the underdog, and jumps into battle fearlessly, it seems. Aries can also be highly romantic and passionate. But overall, Aries is on a quest. There is always a goal Aries is striving for. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my video talking all about the mythology of Aries. Please let me know if you find this video to be helpful today, and did you learn something new? I would really appreciate your feedback, and like you, I'm always learning. You can find all of the sources I used in this video in the description box, and I just want to say a big massive thank you to my patrons. I appreciate your support. And as always, let me know your thoughts and your opinions on today's video. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button and also give this video a like if you did like it today. And I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye.